Howdy ho guys and gals, it's Red, your friendly neighborhood tool bear, back again here in the old den of tools. And today we're here to talk about shop essentials beyond the tools, if you will. Lots of stuff that you need to have in your shop, but it's not the core kind of tools. You watch some of these YouTube videos, stuff like that. You'll see all sorts of stuff in the background, specifically like rows of cans of all sorts of great fun little things. Well, today we're going to talk about some of those stuff. In fact, this is going to be a whole new series. And first off, we're talking about white lithium grease. Why, it is the general grease, multi-use kind of grease that I think that you should be using a lot, if not most of the time in your shop, around your house. Why aren't you using this? Do you know what it is? Let's jump into it and talk about the joy of white lithium grease. I kid you not, I love this stuff. It's fantastic. Now, let's talk about it. Grease versus oil real quick, because a lot of people are like, well, lubrication, you're going to use oil, right? Well, here's what grease is good for. It's typical, better than oil in a vertical application. It can serve as a contamination barrier. It'll protect against water, dust, and stuff like that. It tends to stick around longer. It won't just drip and fall right off. Oil, you really need a reservoir to draw from. Grease, you can just stick it on there and it'll stay around. And grease has a wider range, probably, of operating temperatures and such. Certain oils do too, but we're talking here again, white lithium grease. Now, there's also basic lithium grease, and then you get white lithium grease by adding in the soothing benefits of zinc oxide. Now, what does that get you? Well, now, I'm not a scientist per se, but the way I had it explained to me is the zinc really kind of acts like a sponge, soaking up the properties of the lithium grease and then releasing them as needed under stress. Now, what's this good for? Metal on metal. We're going straight metal with this one. That's where you want to use this. This is a metal to metal lubricant, okay? Now, typical uses: door hinges, rollers, pivot points, sunroof rails, sliding panels, hood latches, cams, pulleys, winches, not wenches, winches, bearings, fittings, conveyors, cables, chains, all sorts of stuff. Again, metal on metal kind of contact. Now, what really got me into the cult of white lithium grease, if you will, was I was doing a rebuild years and years ago on a table saw. I bought this table saw, and it was in poor, unloved kind of condition. And I said, you know what? We're going to tear this thing all the way down, do a full rebuild on it, clean every little nook and cranny there, because it was full of dust and nasty stuff. And in doing my research on what was the best grease to use for the gears and such, it just came out that white lithium grease was the way to go with this. Talking to a lot of the old timers, I guess I'm kind of one of the old timers now myself. Anyway, I gotta tell you, this thing performed flawlessly after adding in some white lithium grease to the trunnions, the gears, and stuff underneath. There's specific areas where you want to use it, specific areas where you don't want to use it. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But any place there's metal meeting metal, white lithium grease, as long as it's not extreme load or extreme high temp, white lithium grease is going to be probably your best go-to option. It's honestly the one I use the most. Now, I've got this the drill press here, 17-inch drill press. I noticed a little stickiness on the spindle there. Well, you pull the spindle out, you put a fine, very fine, again, less is more in many cases, a coating of white lithium grease on that spindle, and boy, that thing purred. There's all sorts of tools in your shop that can use it, even non-motorized tools. Put it on the screw shaft on your vise there, and it's going to help it play back in and out nice and smooth. It could take an old clamp like that and make it act like it's new and young and fresh all over again. I've rebuilt several bandsaws in the shop. And I gotta tell you, white lithium grease on the bearings there, not in the bearings, but on where they mount onto the metal there, is an excellent solution there for stuff like this. All sorts of great stuff, great for underneath for the trunnions on the table and stuff like that. Lots of great uses there for it. Now, again, this is a light to medium grade kind of grease, all right? You're not going to use it for heavy duty, high heat applications, okay? You're also not going to use it where there's going to be a lot of dirt, dust, sawdust kind of stuff. You're not going to use it as a blade lubricant, all right? You're not going to use it someplace there's going to be a ton of sawdust or a ton of dirt. Now, it will repel that, but if you put too much on, it can become a problem. It's weird because white lithium grease may be one of the best greases you can use on a bike chain, but because it can attract dirt, it kind of negates that factor. If you're going to use it on your bike chain, you want a very thin, again, Less is more in this application. Very thin coating. You want to let it set, let it dry up a bit before you take your bike out for a ride, and then check it every so often. It will do a great job of it. If you're a city rider, you don't see a lot of dirt and stuff, that's great. Mountain bikers, probably not so much. And again, putting too much on is going to cause it to collect dirt even faster and will actually have the opposite effect of greasing your chain or any component. Now, what about, because this is a petroleum-based product, what about rubber, other synthetic stuff like that? Can use it on plastics and stuff. And the fact of the matter is, you don't want to use it on rubber or on plastics, but it's not a super high grade petroleum. So using it near that where it may come into contact shouldn't be an issue, but don't use it on like a rubber belt or something like that. That will be counterproductive and will eventually increase the speed at which that material breaks down. Now, one thing, again, because this is a light duty, you cannot use it, should not use it. I guess you can if you want. I'm not your papa, but don't use it for like packing bearings and stuff like that. By the way, this little hand tool here changed my life. I got one of these last year. If you've ever hand packed bearings, I mean, it's hard. It's always like, is it in there, efficiently? Have it got it all the way through? So like, this makes it so simple. It's a $25 little gadget. It works perfectly every time. I can't recommend this enough. By the way, we're going to have links to this kind of stuff down below to the different greases we recommend. I'll even put a link to this down there too. Now, outside your shop, around your house, there's lots of great places, but specifically in your car, door hinges, they're the super squeaky kind of stuff. A lot of people will spray WD-40 in there and be like, hey, this is great. And then, a few weeks or a month later, the squeak comes back. Well, the squeak's getting caused by dirt getting in there. So what I'll do is I'll spray WD-40 in there real quick to clean it out. I'll spray it in, let it sit in there, then maybe go in there with an air compressor, blow it out. Then once it's dry, then we'll apply the white lithium grease. Again, a nice smooth coating, not too much. Again, less is more in this case. Also on track slides under your seat, that kind of stuff. We talked about on your sunroof, any kind of place where you have metal moving against metal. What about the hinges on your on the hood of your car? Even, you have one of those cars where the latch on the front sticks on you. You're trying to open it and it just doesn't want, that little hook doesn't want to release. That's a great place for it as well. Now, this is an odd one. I've seen actual manufacturers recommend white lithium grease as a coating used as a dielectric to protect battery terminals. Now, I always was told you're supposed to use dielectric grease for this sort of thing, which is a silicone-based grease, and that is generally what is recommended. But I have seen white lithium grease used. I've even seen it recommended. What are your thoughts on that? Which would you use? My default would be the dielectric grease, but in a pinch, I guess you could use it because it does have similar properties. Now, as far as which ones to get, well, okay, there's two different types. There's spray versus the kind you get in the can. All right. Now the spray, the point of the spray is convenience. You can spray it on. It applies a nice thin layer as long as you don't go all nutsy bobo with it. But what are the ones to use? Well, the three top ones that I've seen are the blaster here, the white lithium grease. I've used that. It seems just fine. You get a can of that off of Amazon there for $10.99. Now, one of the old school go-to long time ones is CRC. They've been around for a long time making this stuff. Their 10-ounce can is $13.11. And, of course, there's WD-40. Now, remember, WD-40 it's also a formula and a brand, all right? So this isn't the WD-40 that's the water displacement 40 there. This is their version of white lithium grease in a can. And I'll be honest, I usually end up going with this, and I'll tell you why. It's sheer convenience. It works just as fine as the other ones, at least as far as I've been able to tell. But that straw, being able to have that easy applicator on there, you can spray it that way, or you can flip the straw up and use it with the straw. You never lose the straw. No looking for a rubber band to rubber band the straw to the can. I love it. I love that setup. I'm sorry. It's just easy, convenient, and you know what? It works. And if it works, then I'm going to continue to use it, and you get a can of that for $10.99. Now, if you want it in the tub for other application stuff where spray isn't going to be the right choice for that, Liquid Wrench is usually one of the ones I go to. $23.66 for a tub of this. This stuff will last you a long, long time. Trust me on that. That is going to be a big one there for you. You're probably I can't remember the last time I had to buy a tub of it other than the fact of when I lost it. All right. But anyway, there you go. That's my call on white lithium grease. But there you go. That's my take on white lithium grease and why I love it. I use it for all sorts of applications. I use it around the shop. I use it in the cars and trucks. Cars. Do I have a car? Oh, I do. We still have the BMW, the old BMW. But we have mostly trucks around the homestead. Use it at the house, and we even use it in the RV. Do not use it on RV slides in general. Okay, unless your manufacturer specifically calls for it. I wouldn't recommend it. A lot of slides these days don't even recommend any kind of lubrication, and the ones that do usually recommend a dry lube. So make sure you keep them clean, and if you need something like a graphite-based kind of lube or something like that. Anyway, if you've got a great application that you think the bear skipped over for white lithium grease, put it down in the comments. I want to hear. I try to read all the comments and respond to the ones that need responding to. That said, what do you want to see next? We're going to do this series. We've talked about WD-40. I did a big video on that with 2 million some views. We talked about what WD-40 is for and what it's not for and what other good solutions are. But what shop... Shut up, Moto. What shop essentials do you think the bear should talk about next? Let me know down in the comments. Anyway, that's all the bear has for you today. You all take care, God bless, and as always, shine on.